This is Deep in the Stripes, the sickest Bengals podcast around. I am your host, Elise Jesse.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse.
From 31 yards, McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl. They did it. They beat Mahomes at home. Wow, Joe Burrow. No way.
The sickest Cincinnati Bengals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
The Cincinnati Bengals are less than 2 weeks away from their season opener with the New England Patriots. That's Sunday at 1 o'clock, September 8th. But before we talk about any of that, we have to let you know the biggest news that happened over the weekend. Jamar Chase practiced in full with the team. Now, Tom Pelissero was actually the one to break that news. But the Bengals did put out a picture of proof of Jamar Chase practicing with the team, which is so exciting. I think that eases a lot of Bengals fans' nerves because he did not practice at all in training camp. He was doing work on his own off to the side. And he's just in a situation where he is experiencing the business side of the NFL world for the first time. He's still on his rookie contract. He is eligible for a contract extension, and he is hitting $9.8 million against the cap right now for the Cincinnati Bengals. But if you look at the top wide receivers in the game right now, he is not even close to the top 10. His friend, Justin Jefferson, signed with the Vikings, $140 million contract, $110 million guaranteed. You've probably, if you're a Bengals fan, you've heard this a million times, but he is looking for $160 million. And their stall could be on years. Their stall could be guaranteed money, which is usually the case. But they are hoping to get that deal done. I know the Cincinnati's front office was, I'm paraphrasing here, but they were saying that his deal getting done is a top priority. So they are putting that at the top of the list. So everyone just hang out, chill out a little bit. Let's not freak out that Jamar Chase is finally practicing. He's ready to go. And we're going to move on from Jamar Chase to the Bengals chasing a Super Bowl ring in 2024. Now, before they can even begin that 17-game journey, they have a lot of cuts to make. Their first round hit on Friday afternoon. They got rid of 11 players, and it's kind of an interesting situation for a lot of guys. Jackson Carman was the most notable guy cut on Friday. They drafted him in the second round, 48th overall. I know mock drafts for him, he was put as a third rounder. The Bengals take him earlier, and they were hoping that, he would pan out. And simply put, he just didn't. That's kind of how the NFL draft works. I feel like if you're outside of the top 20, 25, people really don't know if you're going to be an impact player for that team until you get into the building. They see you look at film, absorb the information, and then how you apply that to the field and how you do with your teammates. All of those are factors there, and they're really unknowns until you actually get the guy in the building. So the Bengals make cuts, and I have got to bring in my guest. He is a former Bengals punter. He is a current free agent, Drue Chrisman. First of all, I love your social media because you bring such a humanistic side to the NFL world. The fact that you are showing your tryouts with the Washington Commanders, San Francisco, and you're showing everything that goes into it behind the scenes. First of all, I want to get into that, but I want to know from you what it was like when you got cut from Cincinnati. Who was the person that was, the typical guy that brings you up to the coach's office? Who was that? And what was that conversation like for you?
Yeah. You mentioned this Tuesday cuts. I'm very familiar with that day. Usually tomorrow, I'm getting ready to pack up my stuff and head up to Coach Taylor's office and hand in my iPad because I did that 3 years straight. So this is the first time in 4 years I haven't gotten a call from. It's not even Zach. Zach doesn't call you. It's like I think it's one of the scouts. I started blocking their numbers after a while because of how many times I was getting cut. Eventually, my agent just had to reach out, like, Drue, get your iPad and go up to Zach's office. That's pretty much all it is. And as soon as you get that text, what's coming. At least I did because I'd been through it. I think I was cut by them, 10 times by the whole carousel of me being there from 2020 to, I guess, in the beginning of in the preseason last year. You just basically get a text, say, hey, make sure you got your iPad, bring your iPad. Don't forget the charger. They will charge you if you don't bring your charger up there too. And
Wait,
then you
do they upcharge you
Oh,
on
I'm
the
sure it's a
charger?
surcharge. I'm sure. I think near the end, I think one time I had forgot a charger, so I like ran to like the dollar store real quick and grabbed like a little Seaport charger, so I wouldn't get charged $50 for yeah, all the fun stuff of that process. But yeah, you turn your iPad in, you go sit in Zach's office. For my meetings, it was usually pretty short. I knew it was coming for the most part, and just shake your hand and he tell you something, and then since I was special teams, I went and met with Darren,
Mm-hmm.
who was kind of the main point of contact. He's the one that really makes all the cuts for the special teams. Zach's just kind of like, all right, Darren, what do you want us to do? And then, and then I just got to go talk to Zach. So, but most of my conversations dealt with Darren. But yeah, it's not a fun day for a lot of guys tomorrow around the whole league. And, you kind of have your all sights set out for what this season's going to look like. And then you find yourself looking for a home tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And some guys get a call quicker than others. Some guys go through the workout, the tryout cycle that I've been going through the last couple of years and hoping that someone else will make my place home there. But yeah, and sometimes this past preseason game for the majority of those guys, or some of them at least, that's the last time they ever put on pads. So
Mm-hmm.
you just never know. It's a giant wave of emotions of just uncertainty and just welcome to the league.
I feel like NFL players, unless you're Jamar Chase, for example, or Joe Burrow, you have to have extremely thick skin, because you could go in and play your butt off and think that you're doing really well. And then the next day you get one of those calls from the scout, or in your case, your agent, and you get a call to go up to the coach's office.
Right.
I can't even imagine having to deal with something like that. And it's a harsh reality for tons of guys that are going to experience that by Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, 10% of the league, your Jamar Chases, your Joe Burrows,
Yeah.
they're over here complaining about 9.8. Now, rightfully so. I mean, they're more welcome. I'd take that in a heartbeat and run with it.
So would
and never
I.
say a word. Most people in their right mind would, but obviously they're in a different echelon of player, and rightfully so. They deserve that kind of money because of the success, and you don't go chase a ring without Chase.
Right.
Add that little in there. So he deserves that money, but majority of the guys, they kill for that kind of situation. But 90% of the guys, they aren't in that. They're making league minimum, that rookie contract, and just fighting to get that second spot, just fighting to have a team that they can call home consistently throughout this year. And it's not just the guys. I mean, I was dragging around. I got to give big props to my wife and my family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were just as much a part of this as I was, and went through all the roller coaster ride of my time with the Bengals in the last 3 seasons with the NFL. So it's not just one guy. I mean, typically it's a business, and that involves a lot of people when you're making those decisions. So it's not just the guys who have a lot of decisions to make. And I was fortunate enough, I was 25 minutes from home. I mean, I'm driving back home, just going down US 50 and going back into Lawrenceburg. Some of these guys, they might have been coming from Georgia or California. I mean, they're hopping on a plane, and then, I mean, they're not just a phone call away if they get picked up by them for training camp, or for like practice squad or something. So yeah, there's a lot of decisions, and I'm sure it's tough. I mean, it's the nature of the business. It cuts down to only 53. So kudos to the guys that make it, but the guys that don't make it, just keep on scratching and clawing. If this is the dream you want to cut out for yourself, but get ready for that ride. I mean, if you're not drafting those first 3 rounds, get ready for who knows what life is going to throw at you during your time with the NFL.
Yeah, you got to be ready for it all. And I feel like this is kind of why the show Hard Knocks is so popular, because it brings the real side of the NFL, what's going on behind the scenes. I was fortunate enough in my time in local news that I was able to join Darren Simmons for like a 15-hour workday during training camp one year.
Oh, so fun. Lucky you.
That guy had a cot in his office.
Yeah.
Was it still there when you were there? And like a pile of Red Bull.
He had a Peloton. I didn't see.
He added a Peloton. Okay.
There's a Peloton in his office. Maybe I didn't see a cot, but maybe some coach's lounge, or probably some sleep. Shoot, with the new locker room, I'm surprised everyone doesn't have their own bed now. That's
right, like a pull-out bed,
exactly.
Like a Murphy bed or something that pulls right out. That would be sweet. Exactly. Well, I want to know from you: did you make the conversation short, or were you a guy who said, who wanted to know, I guess, why you were being cut and why they were making that decision. And were they open with their thoughts on that stuff?
I mean, in my position, so black and white. I mean,
Mhm.
everything is calculated, distance, hang time, net, average. I mean, it's just so black and white. And Darren did a great job, but probably better than anybody in the league as far as tracking every single punt rep from training camp all the way through the preseason. Obviously, the preseason reps in the game mean a little more. But I mean, when I was going up against Kevin, sometimes I kind of knew where I was already at, especially when he's going to break the all-time Bengals record.
Yeah.
That next season, I was like, yeah, they're probably going to give him another game or two until they make the decision on me. So for me, I kind of saw it coming. Now tomorrow, with the current punting situation they got going on, I know Darren's been tracking all the reps and doing everything he did when I was there. Who actually, when the dust settles, what actually happens? I don't know. This is really a toss up for me at this point, and even have her being in that room. So I'm kind of intrigued and kind of curious what's going to happen there. I got my own personal feelings and thoughts, but I'll be curious to see what actually settles down when the dust settles. But for the most part, I'm sure they're pretty open, and the Bengals do a great job. They don't beat around the bush. They'll tell you exactly what they thought and what you could have improved on to make that decision go in your favor. But that's not the same way it is around the league. I go to a lot of these tryouts now, and most of the time they tell you just how great you did, and then they've been said, not this time, not at this time. I'm like,
okay,
that doesn't really help you too much,
Yeah, it doesn't give you any insight.
A little more critique and feedback would go a long way in those kind of situations. But every situation is different. Every organization is different how they deal with that. But I know the Bengals, they do a great job of being at least upfront about how their feelings are.
What has it, because you have documented some of your tryouts, what is it like to, obviously you wake up early, you get on the flight, you go to Pittsburgh or San Francisco or wherever you're going, Washington, and you get off, you get in check into the hotel, you get a meal. But what is it like walking into the building? You really don't know a lot of guys, and you're just trying to, kind of find your way through the building, find out what you're supposed to do that day. Will you just tell me about that process?
It's very much like the first day of school. Every single place you go. I mean, you don't know anybody. Fortunately for me, coming from a bigger school, Ohio State, I've yet to go to a team where I haven't known somebody on the team already. I remember when I went down to Jacksonville, I had a really good buddy, Luke Farrell. He's a tight end. I believe he was drafted down there, and I just stayed at his place the night before. I've been through this workout enough. I hit him up like, hey man, I'm coming down to Jacksonville that night. What they were going to put me in this hotel. Well, he's like, yeah, come hang out. We'll have a dinner that night. And so I'm fortunate to be in that situation. But a lot of guys that if they don't know anybody, you just hop in the car and they take you where they need to go. And someone's typically there holding your hand, whether it's a scout or equipment manager of some sort. And it's pretty, it depends on the place, but most of the time it's pretty just boom, 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 get your physicals, get you worked out, get you fed, and then get you home, or you might even be practicing later that day. I had a workout where one of the guys got picked up. They punted in the morning during the workout, and then they punted in punt that afternoon. So as far as the equipment guys getting their shoe size and their helmet and everything figured out, I mean, it is a lightning fast process of how that works from the time you get the phone call to the time you wind up in that hotel in that city that next day. I mean, it's very quick, and you'll also be home just as quick too. They get you out of there. It isn't like a big old hangout meet and greet afterwards. As soon as they decide who they want to keep and who they don't, you got a flight booked by the time you leave that field. And
that's crazy.
Home. So I'd rather do it that way. I don't want to sit here and pick up and waste 2 days for something that didn't end up being fruitful. So I'm glad they're that efficient in that process, but it is a very much whirlwind effect. I could get a call right after we hang up here and talk to you again sometime tomorrow night after having traveled across the country and back. I mean, it's crazy how efficient they are, but that's what you got to do in this kind of situation.
Have you ever been in a situation like after a cut? Because I was looking through just kind of your records. Like it's like signed in May, waived in August, re-signed again on September 1st, released September 7th, practice squad October 5th, released October 12th. Like, is your mind just racing during that time where it's so left and right? Like it's just a constant moving situation for you.
Yeah, you learn to hate Tuesdays.
Yeah.
You dread that sometimes those are the longest days, and the undrafted and the guys who are on the fringe. Those are the longest days of the week. You know, if you can make it past Tuesday, that means you're there for that week. So some Tuesdays,
Yeah,
I hope
good.
the phone would ring if I was sitting at home, and then some Tuesdays, I just wanted to turn that phone off, and just the last thing I wanted to get was a phone call. I'd even tell my, don't call me on Tuesday because your heart drops when you're in that kind of situation. Yeah, that rookie year, I know, like you were talking about with Jamar, kind of learning the business side of the NFL. That was thrown very much right in my face my rookie year, and just snip, snap, snip, snap. I mean, just it seemed like every other week I was home or back in the facility. And they were open about why, you know, maybe they had a tight end go down in the game, or cornerback ding up something, so they needed to bring in somebody. And a part of me was, I was so close, so they weren't buying a plane ticket every single time. I mean, I was just getting in my car and driving to the facility and back if I had a job that week. So some of that played into my favor, and some of it didn't. Maybe it made it easier for them to cut me so many times because of that ease of access from home back to the facility. But yeah, it was a fun rookie year, and from that experience, I just learned, you know, this is the epitome of the lack of job security. So just enjoy every single week that you're there, because you don't know if it's your last. So.
Well, I know that, you know, you've been very upfront, which money is kind of a taboo unless you're talking sports money, I think. But you have been so open, and it's been so cool to actually see pay stubs, like actual game checks or practice squad checks. How is that? Does that get affected at all if you're on the team one week and then you're waived or put down to the practice squad another week, like you were in 2021? Like, what is that? How does that affect your money?
Oh yeah, you're only paid if you're there. So if you made it past Tuesday and you were there at practice on Wednesday, you got paid for that week. It didn't matter if you got hurt, whatever. So it's a weekly contract, sometimes daily contracts, I felt like. But if you were there Wednesday, you were going to get paid for that week, whether you were on practice squad, active, IR. The guys that have, I don't know, I never made it that far to get a second contract. Those guys with guaranteed money and, you know, all the benefits that come with getting to that second contract, there might be a little different. But for the guys on contract, I mean, now they've extended it. Now it's like a 36-week pay stub, because they've spaced it out into the off season. So now you're only getting paid half of your money during the season for the guys that can't take care of their money. For the guys that can take care of their money, it kind of screws them a little bit, because now you're only getting half your money. And the NFL gets to keep the other half. Well, that's a topic for another day. But yeah, if you were there that week, you got paid. If you didn't, you made zero. I mean, there was no extra incentive. You can't go into this facility and go grab a lunch or something. I mean, you're cut. I mean, you're fired pretty much, and until they decide to bring you back. So cutthroat, but as you can tell from the videos, yeah, I mean, there's no career you're going to make out of college that is going to make that kind of money right from the get-go. So, you know, like I said earlier, enjoy it while you're in it, because real life starts when that phone call and you hang up those cleats. Welcome. Those guys, they get hit with a hard sense of reality, because those paychecks, they're not normal. It's almost like a fairyland when those checks come in. Like, this is unreal. And for a lot of those guys, they don't understand what actual money and how hard you have to work to get that kind of level. So, which is why you see a lot of the horror stories, you know, guys that leave the NFL and end up being bankrupt in a couple of years because they think that one's going to come forever. And it doesn't. I'll tell you what, I can move as many people as I want in a week, but I'm not going to be making 20 grand. I'll tell you that much. Net.
Well, here's the thing, though. Like, people talk about practice squad play. A practice squad player, if my math is correct, you make $20K a month. Is that correct?
$20K a month. I think practice squad is about. Well, are you talking about taxes or after tax? After taxes, about $5. So yeah, I'd say you're roughly making pocketed net 20 grand a month. And that's just money to him. And you're getting fed, you're getting clothed. You know, obviously all the benefits of the NFL with 401k and everything, if they choose to take advantage of that. I mean, it doesn't get better when you're actually when you're in the facility and making that money. There's nothing that can match that, especially as a young 20-year-old, for sure.
Yeah, they just have to be able to like save some of that. And so save some of that coin. Don't spend it all in one place, please.
Exactly. I'd ride practice school all the rest of my career. I had no quarrels with what I was making
I
on
would
that.
too. If they would let me be on the practice squad, which I would
But
never even come close to
NIL
making
though,
it.
I don't
But
know. The game's changed now with these college kids. I don't even know what the NFL or NIL now, where some guys might be making more in college than they would be in the practice squad in the NFL. So
that is
that's a
so very
whole
true.
new ball game too. So
Yeah, I mean, we would go into a rabbit hole talking about that because I feel like
yeah,
college is
exactly. That's
now
a
like
whole
morphing
other.
into the pro situation kind of thing. That's what it's starting to look like to me. But we'll get into that another day. You and I can talk about
Here we
that.
go.
But you were at the Bengals' final preseason game on Thursday night. And I would love to know if anyone stood out to you. Was there a player that maybe stood out to you during that game against the Colts?
Man, I like the new receiver, Germaine Burton.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It seems like he's pretty electric anytime he catches the ball. It just feels very comfortable already in the system and just the speed of the NFL. Be honest, I was eating conies most of the game.
I saw.
And
You're
especially that
brave
third
for eating those
preseason.
during the game.
Yeah, those, I don't know if that's quite necessarily name brand Skyline, but it gets the job done. A free meal, free is that's my love language,
Hey,
right? And food. So I'm
and
not
food,
turning
yes.
down. Exactly. I'm not turning down a free plate. Yeah, it was fun. That third preseason game, especially like the second half of third preseason, like the fans that stay for that, those are just football fans, because majority of the guys that are out on the field at that point, you're not going to be seeing them the next week or whatever week one is. So sometimes that third preseason game, you're just out there, you're just enjoying ball and not paying too close attention, just because most of those guys aren't going to be there. I remember talking to Kevin early when I got there with him on the couple years I was with him. He's like, I didn't even learn the guys' names until after final cuts, because how many of those guys are not going to be there until the following week. So, but if I had to stand out one guy, there's Jermaine guy, just because there's kind of been a lot of hype about him coming out, and he seemed could be a piece to the puzzle this year for sure.
I like him. I do notice in his interviews, though, sometimes I feel like he talks himself down a little bit, which confuses me, because I'm like, why? No, don't put that out there, man. Don't do it.
And there were some things like I heard like he was sleeping in meetings or something. I don't know.
Okay, so the broadcasters said that, I guess, like on the main broadcast, but they didn't specify if that was pro or college.
I just thought it was odd timing right after the guy catches like a big touchdown to go ahead in the game. All of a sudden you start bringing up the guy sleeping. I was like, he's catching touchdowns. I mean, what more do you want from the guy? I don't care if he's sleeping. If he's out there performing on the field, they don't care. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, exactly. One guy that really impressed me, though, I want to know your thoughts on him. Muma Jongmeta is one of my all-time favorites as far as the newer guys, the fringe guys who are on the team. He's a defensive back, and I just think that he was flying everywhere all preseason. He was all over the field. He was constantly around the football. It gave me kind of like Vontaze Burfict vibes in a way, only he's not as dirty, if that makes sense. Okay. I don't know. Okay. I was a big fan of his. I'm really hoping that by Tuesday at 4 p.m., his name has not come across my email as one of the players cut.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the name. It's a pretty cool name.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I'll have to pay a little more attention to him. I liked his name. Hopefully he sticks around. I'm always a fan of fun names like that. So
yeah, number 45. He was very interesting. I think he could rise up and be a big impact player going forward. And I just want to know from you, like, how do you keep your mental state so high and just even keeled during the process that all these players are going to be going through? How do you keep your mental stamina?
Well, I touched on it a little bit, having family. I was born and raised in Lawrenceburg. So me driving back home, I'd still live in the hometown. So I'm wearing my neighbor growing up. So, I mean, I have in-laws, immediate family. I mean, it's very thick in the Lawrenceburg area. So I have a lot of support right here back at home. It's not like I'm being plucked up and going playing out in California, where I don't have any resources, anybody to, directly right after a hard day off getting cut or something. I don't have I always had a resource, somebody to talk to and kind of process the whole situation. And it was hard that rookie year, but I think from that rookie year, it was kind of a, blessing in disguise, just really understanding man, literally at any moment, this could be over. You could have played
Yeah.
your last game already, put on the pads last time. So part of me in the back of my mind is already thinking like, all right, well, if this is, what is next? So those seeds had been planted from that rookie year, and it was able to help me process when that happened later down the road instead of just my whole world imploding every single time that happened, So I give a lot of credit to my support system, how I was raised and always planning, real life starts when football ends. That's always been in the back of my mind. So like my dad's favorite saying growing up. So having plan B in mind throughout all of college, not just putting all your eggs in one basket, helps that process a lot more. But that's not the case for a lot of the guys. A lot of guys, this is do or die, and I love that mentality. But get ready when that carpet gets swept under from beneath you, and you get dropped into the real world. And we'll see what happens when, hopefully, with how a lot of the horror stories that we've seen in the past, the younger generation learns from those guys and starts thinking ahead. But there's always the guys that it's football or nothing, and so hopefully those guys play and make all the money in the world, because who knows what else is out there for them.
And last but not least, I want to know if you have a prediction for the Bengals season going forward. There's a lot of predictions out there, a lot of people hyping up the Bengals actually to win the AFC North in 2024. I would just love to know what your thoughts are before the season starts.
Yeah, I mean, health is always a key.
Health is wealth.
I think with any kind of roster, especially in this one, I mean, this is the first time that Joe's been healthy through a training camp, and now he's got Jamar back and T. I mean, he's got his weapons. I mean, it seems like it's setting up to be another wonderful year. But I mean, let's just see where the health is at the moment. They have the potential to go all the way. I mean, they've had that potential the last couple of years, and one thing or another, injuries and whatnot pop up. So if we can stay healthy, I think the AFC is nothing but wrapped up in Cincinnati for sure. So. But that's the key, and we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, I grew up a Bengals fan. I'd love to see them win it all. I've been kind of on a roller coaster with them the last couple of years, but first and foremost, I'd love to see the guys and all my friends in that locker room put a big old ring on at the end of the season. So that would be awesome.
Drue, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for joining me on our first ever episode of Deep in the Stripes. And I definitely think that you should plug your moving company, because we've already discussed off camera my moving woes. Pink Zebra, baby. Pink Zebra Moving. Let's go. I love it. I love it.
It's going to be hard to miss if you haven't seen the trucks already. They look exactly like that on the side. Big old beautiful pink billboards driving down the road, and I got a great group of guys. We do a great job moving. Give me a call today, 844-MOVE-FUN. We're the world's first happy moving company, so come holler at your boy.
Oh my gosh, Drue, I almost forgot. First of all, I love that you put your business cards in everyone's lockers when you go on your visits.
I do that.
Two things I noticed. I know I said there was the last question, but I have one more. It just like popped in my head. One, I love that I think it was your San Francisco video. You came rolling down a hill in a grocery cart. Superb balance. Very impressed by that. Yeah, but my question for you is, what do you get out of eating the banana with the peel on? I saw you take a bite of it, and I'm like,
it's called a hook in the entertainment industry, and people see that and they're like, what the heck is this? This guy's crazy. So I did not eat my regular bananas like that. Typically I spit it out right after that, but people love to comment on it, so I'll keep eating a banana weird if they keep watching the videos, I guess. So
I laughed
welcome
so
to
hard.
showbiz.
Like, there is no way he's eating that banana peel. No way. Okay, that makes me feel so much better. I'm so glad. I didn't know if you had some kind of weird fact that it had more potassium in it or
there
something.
Probably is, honestly. Like eating a fully orange or something. I think it actually is better for you, but I'm good with just the regular old banana for now.
Drue, you're
I'm glad you brought that up. That's great.
No, I'm glad we could clarify that for everyone, because I did notice all the comments on it, and I'm like, okay, everybody else is wondering too, so I have to ask this question.
Yep. That's showbiz, baby.
I appreciate you so much, and I will see you in the press box this season.
All right, looking forward to it. Who day?
Bye, Drue.
All right, see ya.
All right, Drue Chrisman, he is so candid and so wonderful to speak to. He just sheds so much light on the cut process and what players go through. And he includes money. If you want to follow him and watch his videos, go to dchrisman91 on Twitter, especially. That's where all of his videos are. It's highly entertaining. So I would definitely recommend checking out his social media. This is it for Deep in the Stripes. Thank you for joining me on our first episode. We'll see you next week.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.